A poem of courting love or a poem of losing one's religion? Maybe the answer is yes and yes. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now over 700 videos strong, and number two, the Emily Dickinson playlist, a playlist that I believe is approaching 250 videos strong. So the poem in question today is known as He Showed Me Heights I Never Saw. And as we often have with Emily Dickinson, there is question as to exactly what this poem is about. Probably one of the lesser appreciated Emily Dickinson poems. It reads as such. He showed me heights I never saw. Wouldst climb? He said. I said, not so. With me, he said. With me. He showed me secrets, morning's nest, then the rope the nights were put across. And now, wouldst thou have me for a guest? I could not find my yes. And then he brake his life, and lo, a light from me did solemn glow, the larger as my face withdrew. And could I further know? Now, the metaphysical claims up here, he showed me morning's nest. Now, and he showed me the rope the nights were put across. If you get to morning's nest, I think that it is possible to wonder if this is a flower. Emily Dickinson will often reference flowers. Is this a bird? Emily Dickinson will often reference birds. I believe this is a metaphysical claim. I don't know of any bird or any flower named Morning's Nest. I think this is from whence the sun springs. So this speaker saying, come with me, is showing metaphysical things. The place the sun sleeps, the nest of the morning sun. The rope the nights were put across. This is not quite as confusing, I think, from a vocabulary standpoint, because this does not look at all like it might be a bird or a flower. So we have this person, along with our speaker, saying in that first stanza there, he showed me heights I never saw. Wouldst climb? He said. I said, not so. With me, he said. With me. Despite the fact that the he in question is showing our speaker new heights, new things, new paradigms. I think you could pretty easily translate this to in real life, right? Someone shows you how to build something, make something, read poetry, any of these types of things. They're showing you new heights, teaches you how to balance your checkbook. It's a new height. Then the claims get bigger. Not new heights. We're not climbing to the top of a mountain or walking up the tallest hill in the area. No. He's showing me where the sun sleeps, showing me the rope the nights were put across. The clouds, the stars, the moon is reeled in on that rope. And this guy, he showed it to me and then asked me, would you have me for a guest? Would you have me in? The speaker says I could not find a yes. And then he brake his life, and lo, a light for me did solemn glow. Break his life, the larger as my face withdrew, and could I further know? So he broke his life for our speaker, and the speaker ends saying, could I say no? This is an interesting conundrum, is it not? I don't think that this is necessarily a poem of courting, although Emily Dickinson did include this poem in a note to one, or in a letter to one of her friends, and she switched up the wording. This is one of the poems, one of the exchanges, one of the changes to her poetry that makes some people wonder if she had romantic relationships with women, not just friendship relationships, because here it is clearly a type of courting going on. I don't think it's exactly the type of courting as in romantic love, but here's where I think this is going, and it happens to hinge on this line here. And then he brake his life, and lo, that's definitely something you would find from time to time in the Bible, definitely that type of wording, but break his life. I think that this is a reference to the crucifixion. You have the idea of Jesus. He showed me new heights. Now, if you have in your town a Christian radio station, there's a list of about 7 words that you're going to hear in every one of those songs. Height or higher is one of those words that you are going to hear in every single Christian song that will ever play. And it is pretty sort of pretty hand in hand with what it is that the religion preaches. I don't think that there is any ambiguity to the term in Christianity, and probably that's why it is so prevalent on Christian rock. He showed me secrets, morning's nest, the rope the nights were put across. So in the end of that first stanza, and then he asked me. So God showed up to me. He showed me a new way of life. And then he asked, would you be with me? Would you be with me in this religion? And the speaker says, not so. He showed me secrets, morning's nest, the rope the nights were put across. Now, these metaphysical claims don't seem like they're just fanciful statements, do they? Now, these metaphysical claims seem as if what this is God explaining the universe to our speaker and then saying, would you have me in your heart? God is showing our speaker, wants our speaker, and shows our speaker the way the universe works, and then asks, what about now? But our speaker could not find a yes. And here's where it gets really interesting, because it's not Christian rock. It's not a straight message of atheism. We get an ambiguous final stanza that could go one of two ways. So we have, if this, in my interpretation, and then he brake his life, and lo, and then he was crucified. The Christ came back and was the Christ came and was crucified. And then he brake his life. And after this, a light for me did solemn glow. You were absolved of all your sins when Jesus was killed upon a cross, right? The larger that light grew larger as my face withdrew. The more I tried to look away from it, the brighter that light shined. And could I further? No. So, what is happening in this final stanza? It's very interesting. It's possible that what our speaker is saying is, after the example of the resurrection, I could not find it in myself to not believe. That guy came, that guy was strung up on a cross and died to absolve me of my sins. How could I say no? But there's an alternative reading for this final stanza. God showed me things, but I didn't believe. I didn't have to. God showed me more things, extreme things, but I didn't follow. I didn't have to. And then, because I didn't follow, God killed a man, guilt tripping me into following the religion. I think that is, now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have incorrect readings of Emily Dickinson. I think there is a lot of ambiguity to be had in Dickinson's words, but her relationship with religion, in my opinion, was anything but straightforward. The reading of this poem, where our speaker gets to the point and says, well, goodness gracious me, a man died for this, how could I say no? That, to me, does not sound like Emily Dickinson. It doesn't sound, that's too straightforward. To me, this raising the point that a man was tortured and killed so that I did not have sin anymore? Well, why couldn't I have done that? That is more in line with the Emily Dickinson that at least seems to often appear on the page. Someone who's saying, look, I have my theories on things. You can't force me to believe anything. Okay, well then I'll kill someone so you believe me. Well, you can kill someone all you want. That doesn't mean I'll believe you. The interesting part of this is the sort of brass rebellion of this is, if this is a poem about religion, if this is a poem about God, if this is a poem about the Christ, nowhere in it does our speaker deny the existence of a God, deny the verity of that Christ. In fact, showing us new heights suggests that God figure not only exists, but has those heights to show. These metaphysical claims of morning's nest and the rope that the knights were put across does not only suggest that God exists, but that God is the prime mover. And so, by the time we get to that final stanza, it seems there is no question in our speaker whether or not God exists, whether or not the Christ was true. By the time that we get to this final stanza, it seems that the argument being made is just because you exist, just because you are the prime mover, and just because you sent your son to be sacrificed to you for me, does not mean that you are worthy of being followed. If that final stanza is a stanza of sarcasm, a stanza of expressed irony, this poem becomes a raging act of defiance. Back in the New Atheist days, where you had Hitchens and Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and once in a while Daniel Dennett going around doing debates and things. Richard Dawkins was once asked, what would it take? What would it take for you to believe? And someone's furthered that question and saying, okay, so Richard, tomorrow, the sky opens up, God peers down at you like from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and says, Mr. Dawkins, you have to follow me. Would that make you believe? And Richard Dawkins said, and that's something of an equation of what was said. Richard Dawkins said something to the extent of, well, I think I'd probably figure that I was having a stroke, right? This poem. So my point is there, someone like Richard Dawkins says, well, I don't know what would make me believe, because if I saw that, I would figure that my senses were faulty. I wouldn't figure, oh, well, that must be God. I would figure my senses were faulty. Here, in this poem, what is happening is our speaker is saying, I believe, I'm willing to believe. I'm willing to look at it with my own two eyes. I'm willing to accept the fact that not only does a God exist, is this God the prime mover, but perhaps this prime moving God is every bit the God that exists in the pages of the Bible. I could know all of that and disagree on principle. What an interesting mindset. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, there's poetry every Monday, so I hope to have you back for the next one.